March 15th, 44 BC, caused great changes in Western history. Julius Caesar, the great Roman general and dictator, was assassinated by a group of conspiratorial politicians during a Senate session. The coup plotters argued that this was the best course of action, given the fear that Julius Caesar would undermine the institutions of the Roman Republic. Julius Caesar had no heirs. His son with Cleopatra, known as Caesarion, was not legally recognized as a Roman citizen. In his will, Julius Caesar chose his great-nephew, Gaius Octavian, as his heir. This decision forever changed the life of young Octavian, who in the future would be known by the name Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The death of Julius Caesar caused a rift in Rome's government. The senators who plotted against Caesar's life underestimated the Roman general's popularity with the people. With quick actions by Mark Antony, Julius Caesar's former general in the conquest of Gaul, and his personal friend, the entire population of Rome learned of the assassination. A crowd gathered in front of the Senate and expressed their anger against the assassins by burning the Senate house. When Julius Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, the 17-year-old Gaius Octavian was studying and receiving military training in Apollonia, a Roman city in Illyria in the Western Balkan Peninsula. Octavian rejected the advice of some army officers to take refuge with his troops in Macedonia. He sailed to Italy to ascertain whether he had any political or financial assets. The decision by Octavian could have been fatal, as he could have been the target of an attack by Julius Caesar's remaining enemies. After landing in Lupiae, near the ancient city of Brundisium, Octavian read the will. It was there that he decided to become Caesar's political heir, as well as inheritor of 2/3 of his estates. To Octavian's misfortune, power in Rome was divided between Consul Mark Antony and Aemilius Lepidus, one of the most influential politicians in the Roman Senate. There was a conflict of interest between Octavian and Caesar's former supporters, especially Mark Antony, who refused to hand over the financial inheritance that was Octavian's right. With enormous determination and cunning, Octavian, although young, succeeded in winning over many of Caesar's former supporters, including some legions. In 43 BC, Octavian, Mark Antony, and Aemilius Lepidus created the Second Triumvirate, a power-sharing agreement that divided the territories of Rome among them. This agreement was made to balance the political powers in Rome and appease a possible civil war. The territories ruled by Rome were divided. The east went to Mark Antony, Africa to Lepidus, and the west to Octavian. The peace did not last long. In 41 BC, Mark Antony established a romantic and political alliance with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt and former lover of Julius Caesar. This alliance continued even after a senatorial decree forced the marriage of Mark Antony to Octavian's sister, known as Octavia the Younger. To continue his relationship with Cleopatra, Mark Antony divorced Octavia in 32 BC. This decision angered Octavian. In retaliation, Octavian declared war on Cleopatra. This sparked the famous Battle of Actium on September 2nd, 31 BC. Octavian's naval fleet cornered and defeated Mark Antony's ships. Cleopatra's navy rushed to the aid of her lover, but in the end, the two were defeated and narrowly escaped. Mark Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt, where they committed suicide. Aemilius Lepidus, politically weakened, was Octavian's next target, as he wanted to consolidate his power in Rome. But Lepidus could offer no resistance. Octavian became Rome's undisputed ruler. But the shrewd Octavian knew better than to hurry his climb to power, otherwise he would suffer the same fate as Julius Caesar. He knew how to charm the Senate and the people, defending Rome's republican traditions without showing any aspiration to dictatorship or monarchy. On January 16th, 27 BC, the Senate awarded Octavian the new titles Augustus and Princeps. The name Augustus was inherited by all future emperors, becoming the emperor's main title. For political and personal reasons, Octavian decided to underline his family's link to Julius Caesar by adding the surname Caesar to his honorary titles. He became known as Gaius Julius Caesar Octavian Augustus, and later Emperor Caesar Augustus. The month of August is due to a decree in honor of Emperor Caesar Augustus. Before this change, August was known as Sextilis because it was the 6th month in the Roman calendar. In 19 BC, Augustus received the title Imperium Maius, finally attaining supreme power over all the provinces of the Roman Empire. After that, Caesar Augustus ruled surprisingly well, becoming the first emperor of Rome and a model for all following emperors. Regarding Augustus's appearance and personality, it is reported that he was short, handsome, and of good physical proportions. He had charisma, an essential attribute for rulers. As for his character, it is said that he was cruel as a young man, but became milder with maturity. However, this can be justified by the consolidation of his power. With a more secure leadership, the need for brutality diminished. He remained prepared to be ruthless whenever necessary. He tolerated criticism, had a good sense of humor, and a special taste for playing dice. His public moral attitudes were rigid, a trait he probably learned from his great-uncle Julius Caesar. An example of this was when Augustus exiled his daughter, Julia, because she offended his principles and defiled the family name by participating in parties filled with alcohol and immoral affairs. Augustus's reign was a golden age in every way. Augustus's peace became known as Pax Romana. The economy, arts, and agriculture flourished. An ambitious program of building and renovating Rome was begun, where Augustus completed the plans made by Julius Caesar and then proceeded with his own grandiose undertakings. He restored or built about 82 temples in 1 year. The famous public Roman baths were built during Augustus's reign. He passed many comprehensive reforms and laws to maintain stability in marriage and increase the birth rate in Rome. But there was one episode that undermined Augustus's reign. An alliance of Germanic peoples ambushed 3 Roman legions, led by the general Publius Quintilius Varus. The Germanic alliance was led by Arminius, a Germanic officer who had Roman military education. He managed to methodically outwit the Romans and predict the tactical responses of the enemy army. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest is considered one of the most important defeats in Rome's history, abruptly ending Augustus's triumphant period of expansion. The outcome of this battle dampened the Romans' ambition to conquer Germania. It is considered one of the most important events in European history. Upon learning of the defeat, Emperor Augustus was so shaken that he banged his head on his palace walls, repeatedly shouting, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." At the age of 75, Augustus's health deteriorated, and he prepared for a peaceful transition in power. He chose his adopted son, Tiberius, as heir. Augustus died in the city of Nola in southern Italy in 14 AD. His last official words were, "I found Rome built of bricks. I leave her clothed in marble." There were rumors that Livia Drusa, Augustus's wife, caused the emperor's death by giving him poisoned figs. But some historians consider that these rumors were a lewd fabrication by Augustus's political enemies. Alternatively, it is possible that Livia gave a poisoned fig as an assisted suicide to ease Augustus's suffering. This was common practice among the nobility of the time, who considered this gesture a way to depart with dignity into the afterlife. Augustus's body was returned to Rome, and, on the day of the funeral, all businesses in the city closed out of respect for the emperor. The body was cremated and the ashes buried in his mausoleum. Augustus's death was seen as the loss of a great ruler, brimming with talent and vision. He was proclaimed a god among the host of the Roman pantheon. Tiberius Caesar Augustus was the second Roman emperor. His reign lasted from 14 to 37 AD. Tiberius is usually described as enigmatic and darkly complex, intelligent and cunning. But he had bouts of severe depression and dark moods that had a major impact on his political career. His 23-year reign as emperor is considered the beginning of a dark period in Roman history. Tiberius was the adopted son of Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor, but he never aspired to follow in the footsteps of his stepfather. This was decided by his mother, Livia, who according to historical records was controlling and authoritarian. Soon after his birth, Tiberius was destined for a public career, for his parents were descended from the Claudian gens, one of the most prominent patrician houses of ancient Rome, which for many generations provided leaders for the Roman Republic. When Tiberius was 4 years old, his parents divorced and his mother married Octavian. This way, the infant Tiberius became the stepson of the future ruler of the Roman world. During Tiberius's childhood, the old republican system, run by the Senate and magistrates, was finally overthrown. It was replaced by an autocracy, where the capable and ambitious Octavian was elected emperor. Tiberius became a strong, big man, educated in oratory, and winning legal disputes as a lawyer. Despite being groomed by Augustus as his successor, Tiberius was the fourth choice after Agrippa, husband of Julia, Augustus's only daughter, and sons Gaius and Lucius, but they all passed away abruptly, leaving only Tiberius as the candidate. Tiberius was quickly given a military command and proved to be a brilliant general. He conquered the mountainous area of Raetia in present-day Switzerland. Later, he also conquered large parts of Pannonia and Illyria, facing large barbarian armies. Tiberius also launched an offensive on the Danube and defeated the Germanic tribe of the Marcomanni. He returned to Rome and was consul for the second time. He also received control of the Roman provinces in the east. Despite these successes, Tiberius was not happy. The reason for Tiberius's unhappiness was his forced divorce. He was married to Vespasian Agrippina, and, although they had a happy marriage, Augustus ordered the two to divorce after the death of Vespasian's father, who was married to Julia, Augustus's daughter. Although Tiberius wished to remain with Vespasian and despised Julia for her alleged infidelity, Augustus ordered the marriage to Julia to tie Tiberius's growing power to the Julian family. In 2 AD, Tiberius's unhappy marriage to Julia was annulled, and, on the order of her father, Emperor Augustus, she was exiled, supposedly for adultery. But, most likely, this was because of the deep dislike that Tiberius felt for her. With the death of the two heirs apparent, Gaius and Lucius, both victims of illness in military campaigns, Augustus recognized Tiberius as his successor. In 4 AD, Augustus officially adopted Tiberius, adding the words, "I do this for reasons of state." These words show that Augustus did not want to make Tiberius his successor, and even Tiberius didn't seem to have the will to take on the responsibility. He was already in his 40s when he finally adopted, a common practice in ancient Roman politics. When Augustus died on August 19th in 14 AD, Tiberius's position was established. After so many years of living under his stepfather's orders, Tiberius finally assumed the mantle of power. After Augustus was buried and deified, his will was read and honored. The Senate met on September 18th to inaugurate Tiberius's new reign as emperor. The accounts of the time say that Tiberius renounced before the Senate various powers and titles. Perhaps trying to imitate Augustus's behavior in his rise to power, Tiberius tried to pass himself off as a humble and unambitious person, but ended up spoiling the performance. He declared that he was too old for the burdens of statehood, and said that he did not want the office of emperor. Finally, Tiberius accepted the powers that were voted to him. His first years as emperor went well. He shunned much of the pageantry after his ascension, respecting the Senate's authority. Considered avaricious by some and modest by others, he initiated many public works projects that were not completed. The second emperor's reign respected the imperial system and ensured its acceptance by most local elites. Everything changed when Germanicus, Tiberius's adopted son, died. The emperor sent Germanicus to serve in the eastern military campaigns, where the young general won important victories. Also in the eastern provinces, Germanicus came into conflict with the Roman governor of Syria, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso. During the dispute, Germanicus became ill in Antioch and died in 14 AD, at the age of only 33. His death was attributed to poisoning, but this was never proven. As a famous general, Germanicus was extremely popular and seen as an ideal heir to the empire. Calpurnius Piso, once considered a personal friend of Tiberius, was accused of being the mastermind behind Germanicus's poisoning. He was summoned to Rome to answer the charges, and, despite his appeals to the emperor, he was forced to commit suicide. Germanicus's death changed the personality of Tiberius, who became increasingly cruel and suspicious. Tiberius ordered the imprisonment, torture, and execution of many nobles accused of conspiring against his government. His reputation as a ruthless tyrant made him unpopular with the people of Rome. More and more rumors arose about Tiberius living a secret life, with parties filled with alcohol and depravity. As time passed, Tiberius showed less and less interest in political life, making annual excursions to the Campania region of southern Italy. By 26 AD, Tiberius had had enough. Almost always happier away from the capital and its everlasting intrigues, the emperor simply headed for his vacation mansion on the island of Capri and never returned to Rome. The government passed to Lucius Aelius Sejanus, commander of the Praetorian Guard. Power quickly went to Sejanus's head. He began to abuse his authority, sometimes acting like the real emperor. But he made a fatal mistake. He accused the two intermediate heirs to the throne, Nero Caesar and Drusus Caesar, of plotting treason against Tiberius. Nero Caesar was banished to an island and sentenced to commit suicide. Drusus was imprisoned in the basement of the imperial palace, where he died of starvation. Tiberius may have retired to the island because he disliked politics and intrigue, but he could ruthlessly exercise his power when the need arose. He drafted a letter ordering the immediate arrest and execution of Sejanus, who was imprisoned during a Senate meeting, and summarily executed. His corpse was dragged through the streets and thrown into the Tiber River. His family and many of his supporters suffered similar fates. To lessen further political intrigue in his succession, Tiberius drafted his will, choosing the 24-year-old Gaius Julius as the chief heir. Gaius Julius was the youngest son of the late Germanicus, the Emperor Tiberius's adopted child. This was perhaps the worst decision of Tiberius's life. To his and the people of Rome's misfortune, Gaius Julius proved to have an extravagant, cruel, and perverted nature, becoming better known during his reign by the name Caligula. Tiberius died on March 16, 37 AD, months before his 78th birthday. Tiberius's death is surrounded by mysteries and rumors, including the hypothesis that the emperor was poisoned by Caligula, starved to death, or suffocated with a pillow at the hands of the prefect of the Praetorian Guard, Naevius Sutorius Macro. Tiberius was later remembered as a dark, reclusive, and gloomy ruler, someone who never wanted to hold that office. The Roman writer and historian Pliny the Elder dubbed the late Tiberius the saddest of men. Tiberius was not popular in his time, but history has shown that he was one of the most important military commanders during a critical period. Tiberius expanded the empire and helped protect the borders for many decades. As second emperor, he greatly strengthened the imperial office, promoting the cult of the emperor and ensuring the subordination of senators. He increased the security of future Roman emperors. Vespasian was the sixth Roman emperor. He is considered one of the most important of ancient Rome, as he restored order and stability to the empire, which had been weakened by the excesses of his predecessor, Emperor Nero. The story of Vespasian's reign was a tale of wars and intrigues, with the protagonist being an unlikely hero by the standards of Roman history. Born on November 17, 9 AD, in Rieti, north of Rome, Vespasian was baptized with the name Titus Flavius Vespasian. His father was Flavius Sabinus, a tax collector who held an important position in his village. His mother, Vespasia Pola, belonged to an equestrian family, and his brother, also named Sabinus, became a senator. Although he did not belong to a noble family, Vespasian was a military tribune in Thrace and a financial official on the island of Crete and eastern Libya. He commanded a legion in Germany and Britain, participating in more than 30 battles and capturing at least 20 cities. Around 60 AD, Vespasian served in Africa, where he suffered the scorn of the local population who despised the Roman presence in the region. Vespasian stood out for his honesty, as he was recognized for not embezzling taxes for his own financial gain. As a consequence, he suffered financial problems and only avoided bankruptcy with the help of his brother, Sabinus. To recover his fortune, Vespasian engaged in the trade of pack mules. In his private life, Vespasian was married to Flavia Domitilla, with whom he had 3 children. Apparently, their marriage was based on love and not political ambitions, as was common at the time. While Vespasian was fulfilling his duties away from Rome, the Roman Empire was going through turbulent times. Within a few years, the empire was ruled by emperors Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Around 66 AD, Vespasian became part of Nero's imperial entourage in Greece, a position considered of great importance. However, Vespasian made a terrible mistake. He fell asleep during one of Emperor Nero's endless and tedious recitals. Nero was feared for his volatile personality and had already ordered the execution of other people who had disrespected his artistic performances. Vespasian fell into disgrace and fled to an obscure country town, hiding for fear of becoming a victim of Nero's wrath. To Vespasian's relief, there was a Jewish rebellion in 67 AD. Nero needed a commander who knew ways to expel the Jews from their walled cities, and Vespasian was pardoned. At the age of 58, Vespasian went to Judea commanding 2 legions, with 8 squadrons of cavalry and 10 auxiliary cohorts. Eventually, thousands of Jews were killed, and the Romans destroyed many cities to re-establish control over Judea. During this conflicted period, Vespasian is remembered as a just and humane officer, using violence only when necessary. Everything changed in 68 AD, when the Emperor Nero suffered a coup d'etat and was declared a public enemy. Nero fled Rome and committed suicide. His death began the period known as the Year of the Four Emperors, where between 68 and 69, there were 4 Roman emperors. After a brief period of civil war, Rome witnessed the rise and fall of 3 Roman emperors. The first to assume the office of emperor was Galba, and he was assassinated by Otho, who became the next emperor. Otho committed suicide after being defeated at the Battle of Bedriacum, where he faced a rebellion led by Vitellius. With this victory, Vitellius was proclaimed emperor. Rumors against Vitellius were quickly born among the Roman legions. By this time in his life, Vespasian was already a general admired by his legions, and even by other important generals in the Roman army. Vespasian's rise to emperor occurred in an unusual way, as he showed little interest in politics. Some increasingly detested Vitellius, and Vespasian was proclaimed emperor by his own legions, who swore him total loyalty. Other generals serving in the East quickly encouraged their legions to join Vespasian, making him master of half the Roman world. Vespasian acted quickly and sent troops as far as Italy to confront Vitellius. Meanwhile, he crossed Egypt and captured Alexandria, cutting off the supply of grain to Rome. Vespasian was the first Roman emperor since Augustus to visit Egypt. At the Alexandrian Hippodrome, he was hailed as a pharaoh and proclaimed by the Egyptians as the son of the creator deity Ammon. While still in Egypt, the Roman Senate recognized Vespasian as emperor on December 21st, 69, beginning the Flavian dynasty. Vitellius was defeated by Vespasian's forces at the Second Battle of Bedriacum. Vitellius was captured, tortured, and killed. Upon his arrival in Rome, Vespasian was welcomed as the new Roman emperor on December 26, 69 AD. Vespasian was an effective emperor. One of his first acts was to restore the army's morale. Then, he rebuilt many of the houses and buildings burned during the last days of Vitellius's reign. Vespasian built new temples and the huge Colosseum, also called the Flavian Amphitheater. The ancient historians who lived in this period, such as Tacitus, Suetonius, and Josephus, speak highly of Vespasian while condemning the previous emperors. Many other philosophers and writers had their works confiscated, destroyed, and denounced because they were considered too critical of Vespasian's reign. Several Stoic philosophers were accused of corrupting students with improper teachings and were expelled from Rome. Vespasian was known for his intelligence and kindness, along with his dominant personality and military talent. He was liberal with senators and with cities and towns devastated by natural calamities. His appearance was quite modest, being a bald man with a broad face and retracted chin. Vespasian was a sarcastic and jovial humor, a rare trait in such an important ruler. After ruling the empire for a decade, Vespasian contracted an illness while traveling through Campania. Upon his immediate return to Rome, he headed for his customary summer retreat to the hot springs in the Sabine Hills. The natural springs could do little to help the condition, which worsened dramatically, evolving into diarrhea. Even though he felt death approaching, Vespasian did not lose his sense of humor, saying, "I think I am turning into a god." According to the Roman historian Suetonius, Vespasian, suddenly consumed by illness, said, "An emperor ought to die standing up." And, as he struggled to stand, he died at the age of 69, in the arms of those who tried to help him rise from his bed. Vespasian was among the few Roman emperors to die of natural causes, a testament to a successful reign. For the first time in Roman history, a Roman emperor was succeeded by his own biological son. Vespasian's eldest son, Titus, became emperor. After his short but successful reign, Titus's younger brother, Domitian, took over as emperor. Vespasian's story is an example that sometimes those who do not desire power turn out to be the best rulers. Considered by many scholars to be the greatest Roman emperor, Trajan reigned from 98 to 117 AD. The Roman Senate awarded him with the honorary title Optimus Princeps, meaning the best ruler. Trajan is recognized for being generous to his subjects and a benevolent governor, responsible for creating public projects that benefited the Roman population and the rest of the empire. During Trajan's reign, the Roman Empire expanded its borders to their maximum extent. Born on September 18, 53 AD, in the Roman province of Hispania Baetica, now the Spanish region of Andalusia, and a member of a wealthy family, Trajan was baptized with the name Marcus Ulpius Trajanus. During his youth, Trajan served in Syria as a military tribune. He enjoyed a prosperous career, reaching the rank of praetor in 85. Shortly thereafter, he headed the 7th Gemina Legion in northern Spain. A few years later, Trajan rose to prominence again during the reign of Emperor Domitian as general of the Roman army on the Germanic border. With Domitian's assassination in 96 AD, the office of emperor passed to Marcus Cocius Nerva, an old childless senator who was unpopular in the Roman army. After narrowly escaping a conspiracy against his life by the Praetorian Guard, Nerva realized that he had to get the support of the army to avoid being ousted from his new position. To achieve this goal, Nerva needed allies with influence in the army. There was no one better than the respected Trajan. In the summer of 97, Trajan was named Nerva's adopted son and successor. Trajan was governor of Germania Superior, where he learned of the adoption. But he was cautious about his new social position. Instead of quickly returning to Rome, Trajan decided to summon the Praetorian leaders responsible for the mutiny against Domitian and probably against Nerva, promising them a promotion in the army. But instead of receiving the promised promotion, they were executed as soon as they arrived in Trajan's domains. These ruthless actions clearly showed that Trajan would not tolerate traitors in his future reign. Nerva died of natural causes on January 28, 98. Trajan was quickly appointed emperor by the Roman Senate. His appointment made Trajan the first Roman emperor born outside Italy. Trajan did not immediately return to Rome. Instead, he surveyed the borders of the Rhine and Danube, twice defeating a revolt by the people of Dacia, where present-day Romania is now. He used the spoils from these victories to finance public works projects in Rome. Among these projects was a spacious new forum with 2 libraries and a huge stone column called Trajan's Column. The column was covered with sculptures depicting the victory over the Dacians and still stands today. Located in Trajan's Forum, near the Quirinal Hall, north of the Roman Forum, the column is approximately 30 meters high, plus 8 meters of pedestal, for a total height of 38 meters. Trajan's Column is one of the largest and most important monuments that survived the fall of Rome. Finally, in the summer of the year 99 AD, Trajan entered Rome on foot. He embraced each of the senators and even walked among common people. This display of humility was a sign that Trajan was unlike any other emperor. The Roman historian Cassius Dio wrote, "Trajan was remarkable for his justice, bravery, and simple habits. He was an emperor who was concerned with good government and public welfare, establishing an excellent social policy." Trajan invested heavily in promoting popular entertainment. One of the most notable events was a gladiatorial festival that lasted 3 months at the Great Roman Colosseum. Between chariot races, animal fights, and gladiatorial combats, the bloody spectacle allegedly caused 11,000 deaths and attracted a total of 5 million spectators from the festival. The state-funded public entertainments helped to maintain contentment among the populace and further boost Trajan's morale. Despite all his virtues, Trajan was not a perfect man. He overdrank wine and liked to have relations with young boys. Although this was common practice among the nobility of ancient Rome, it was not a well-regarded custom when pursued by the emperor. Trajan was also known for his bellicose side. He seemed to enjoy the battlefield and devising war strategies. In 1113, Trajan embarked on his last military campaign. whose goal was to regain control of the empire's eastern frontier. This new wave of conflict began when the Kingdom of Parthia decided to put a king of its people on the throne of Armenia, which was a Roman buffer state. Trajan first marched on Armenia and annexed it to the Roman Empire. Then, he and his legions marched south, conquering the cities of Babylon, Seleucia, and finally the capital of Parthia, called Ctesiphon. He continued to the Persian Gulf, where he declared Mesopotamia a new province of the Roman Empire. In Trajan's reign, the Roman Empire stretched from Scotland to the Caspian Sea, ruling millions of subjects throughout the territory. In early 117 AD, Trajan fell ill and left for Italy. His health worsened during the spring and summer of that year, increasing the probability that he was poisoned, although there is no evidence. Trajan arrived in the southern Anatolian city of Selinus, where he died suddenly, probably on August 11th, 117, apparently a victim of a stroke. His body was taken to Seleucia, where it was cremated. His ashes were transported to Rome and placed in a gold urn at the base of Trajan's column. He was elevated to the rank of deity in the Roman pantheon by the Senate. His cousin, Hadrian, whom Trajan is said to have adopted as his son while on his deathbed, was chosen as emperor. Hadrian, upon becoming ruler, returned Mesopotamia to Parthian rule, as he considered this a province too expensive and far away to be defended by the Romans. However, all the other territories conquered by Trajan were kept. In the rest of the history of the Roman Empire, even in the Byzantine Empire, all new emperors after Trajan were honored by the Senate with the following prayer: "May you be luckier than Augustus and better than Trajan." Unlike many rulers in history, Trajan's reputation survived unchanged for nearly 19 centuries. Later, theologians, such as Thomas Aquinas, considered Trajan an example of a virtuous pagan. Trajan will always be remembered as a strict but fair ruler who found an effective balance between territorial conquest and maintaining a high quality of life for his people. Emperor Hadrian ruled from 117 to 138 AD. Hadrian was noted for his complex personality, his fondness for poetry and the arts in general, and his deep admiration for Greek philosophy and culture. Hadrian was known for his public speaking, and some historians considered him one of the most talented men in Roman history. Hadrian was born on January 24th, 76 AD in Italica, a Roman colony in Hispania Baetica, which is now in the Andalusia region of Spain. Hadrian's family gave rise to several soldiers who had renowned military careers. Hadrian's father was also an important soldier and provided a good education for his son. However, when Hadrian was only 10 years old, his father passed away. Following a Roman tradition, where a male guardian was to be appointed when a child's father died, Hadrian's father's cousin was chosen for this task. The name of Hadrian's new guardian was Trajan, who later became one of the key Roman emperors. Hadrian was educated in various subjects common among young aristocrats of the time. He was so keen on learning Greek literature that he was nicknamed Little Greek. Barely old enough, Hadrian accompanied Trajan on his military campaigns. Hadrian's initial years in the army were not significant, as the young man liked to lead a life with few responsibilities, preferring to go out hunting or enjoy other luxuries of civilian life. During Hadrian's second term as tribune, the frail and elderly reigning emperor, Nerva, adopted Trajan as his heir. When Nerva died in 98, Hadrian rushed and personally revealed to Trajan the news of his new position as emperor. With this, Hadrian was able to draw Trajan even closer, something that would bear good fruit for his life. Trajan spent most of his reign fighting in foreign wars. Therefore, his wife, Pompeia Plotina, played an important role in the empire's administration. Plotina, who had no children, had developed an affection for Hadrian, treating him as part of the family. By 114 ADS, Hadrian held a key position as governor of the important military province of Syria. There is no doubt that Hadrian had a relevant status during Trajan's reign. Still, there were no signs that he could become the imperial heir. When Trajan died in 117, he He left a letter where he named Hadrian as the next emperor of Rome. Many senators were against Hadrian keeping this position. They claimed that Trajan's widow, Pompeia Platina, had forged the letter to try to keep herself in power, perhaps ruling through Hadrian. The senators also objected to the idea of having a man with a foreign accent ruling the empire, as Hadrian retained the accent of his homeland in Spain. Hadrian was pressured by Platina to marry the young Vibia Sabina. The marriage took place for purely political reasons, as Sabina did not seem to like the marriage from the start, and Hadrian preferred the company of men. Although their marriage could not be considered a success, his reign was nothing short of spectacular. When he assumed power, Hadrian immediately ordered the distribution of money to the people of Rome, guaranteeing all soldiers an extra bonus. He also canceled the debts of all people who had borrowed money from the imperial treasury. Hadrian also believed that it was important to be modest. For example, when he took part in military campaigns, he ate the same food as his soldiers, slept in common tents, and marched with them instead of on horseback. Although Hadrian was a talented poet and musician, he rarely displayed his gifts in public. Hadrian was also one of the most creative architects who ever breathed into this world. However, he refused to accept credit for many of his works. He even put other people's names on the buildings he designed, and only in recent years have historians discovered that Hadrian was responsible for the Pantheon, one of the most important buildings in the development of world architecture. Hadrian was a man with a passion for travel and aimed to personally visit the many lands and peoples of his empire. These far-reaching travels began with a visit to Gaul in the year 121 and would end 10 years later on his return to Rome in 131 AD. No other emperor saw much of his own empire as Hadrian. From the far west of Spain to the far east of the Turkish province of Pontus, from the far north of Britain to the far south of the Sahara Desert in Libya, Hadrian saw a little bit of everything. These trips were not simple tours. Hadrian sought to gather information about the varied problems of the provinces. Hadrian's construction projects are perhaps his most lasting legacy. He ordered the construction of a long defensive wall in Britannia to prevent invasion by the Picts from the north. This structure is the famous Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain, and parts of it still stand. Hadrian established cities, built monuments, improved roads, and strengthened the infrastructure of provinces throughout the Balkan Peninsula, Egypt, Asia Minor, North Africa, and Greece. Hadrian's reign was marked by the absence of major military conflicts. War nearly broke out with Parthia around 121, but the threat was averted when Hadrian negotiated peace. In Judea, Hadrian's anti-Jewish persecutions led to the huge Jewish revolt between 132 and 135 AD. The crushing of the Jewish revolt resulted in Hadrian's decree banning Jews from living in Palestine, whose name was changed to Syria-Palestine. Jerusalem was destroyed and rebuilt as a pagan city. Hadrian's marriage to Sabina produced no children. At age 60, Hadrian was in poor health. Knowing that death was near, Hadrian searched for an heir. He chose Antonius Pius, a highly respected senator, provided that Antonius, also childless, would adopt Hadrian's promising young nephew, Marcus Aurelius. The latter would become one of the most important Roman emperors. After spending agonizing months, Hadrian, a victim of illness, died at the age of 62 on July 10, 138 AD. His remains were transported to Rome and buried in Horti Domitiae, near his nearly completed mausoleum. After the completion of Hadrian's tomb in Rome in 139, his body was cremated and his ashes placed next to those of his wife, Vibia Sabina. Thus ended the life of Emperor Hadrian, admired by many of his contemporary subjects, having left a valuable legacy in Roman history. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most respected emperors in Roman history. Considered the last of the 5 good emperors, his 4 predecessors were Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, and Antonius Pius. Known for his philosophical interests, stoic personality, and commitment to governing the people, Marcus Aurelius was one of the most impressive figures of his time and remains relevant today. Marcus Aurelius was born on April 26, 121 AD, during the reign of Emperor Hadrian, and was baptized as Marcus Annius Verus. His family was of Italian Hispanic Roman origin and, although financially secure, had no royal lineage. His father passed away when he was only 3 years old, and, consequently, young Marcus Aurelius was raised by his mother and grandparents. When the Roman Emperor Hadrian was on the verge of death, he was forced to choose a successor. Childless, he adopted a senator named Antoninus Pius. Since Antoninus also had no children, he adopted the 7-year-old Lucius Verus as the chief heir, and 17-year-old Marcus Aurelius as imperial prince. Marcus Aurelius changed his name to Marcus Aurelius Antoninus and worked hard alongside his adoptive father while learning the arts of ruling and public affairs. In 140 AD, Marcus Aurelius became consul, a position he held another 2 times in his life. Marcus Aurelius seemed to have a stable personal life with few eccentricities. In the year 145, he married Faustina, the youngest daughter of the Emperor Antoninus Pius. Together, they had many children over the years, although some did not live long. The best known are daughter Lucilla and son Commodus. When Antoninus Pius died in 161, Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus became co-emperors, ruling the vast Roman Empire together. The rule of Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Vero was a troubled period in the Roman Republic. The war against Parthia lasted until 166, as the fierce Gauls attacked the northern Roman frontier. In addition, Germanic tribes were invading Roman provinces on the Danube. But something unexpected happened. Lucius Verus died suddenly in 169 from illness during a military campaign against the Parthians, leaving Marcus Aurelius as sole Roman emperor. Like many emperors, Marcus Aurelius spent most of his time addressing issues of law, such as petitions and legal disputes. But, unlike many of his predecessors, he was already proficient in imperial administration when he assumed power. During Marcus Aurelius's reign, the first pandemic with known impact on the Roman Empire occurred, possibly contracted and spread by soldiers returning from campaigns in the Near East. Known as the Antonine Plague, experts believed it was a plague of smallpox, although measles has also been suggested by modern scholars. The plague spread to Gaul and the legions along the Rhine River, causing the death of approximately 5 million, about 10% of the empire's population. Still, Marcus Aurelius guided the empire prosperously. The value of silver increased, and the economy strengthened. There is also evidence of trade between Rome and China of the Han Dynasty. Many Roman coins have also been found in India, indicating that the Romans imported Chinese silk through India, avoiding overland trade via the Silk Road along Persia. Following the Stoic philosophy he adopted, Marcus Aurelius was extremely careful in the theory and application of legislation. He was dubbed by his contemporaries as a most prudent and conscientiously just emperor. Marcus Aurelius showed ample respect for the Roman Senate and routinely asked permission to spend money, even though he did not need to do so as an absolute ruler of the empire. In a speech, Marcus Aurelius reminded the Senate that the imperial palace where he lived was not his own, but that of the people of Rome. As the most powerful man in the world at the time, Marcus Aurelius could have done anything he wanted, and few had the courage to challenge him on any issue. However, he proved to deserve the power he had. In his reign, the empire was guided by virtue and wisdom. Although he lost children, friends, and even his wife over the years, Marcus Aurelius remained true to his vision of a world ruled by natural and benign intelligence. There was no concept of tragedy in Aurelius's philosophy, but everything happened according to a natural order, and nothing could be construed as tragic. Marcus Aurelius devoted much of his military efforts to fighting the revolts in Germania, even traveling alongside the troops to supervise the battles. During the campaign between 170 and 180, Marcus Aurelius wrote his 12 books of meditations in Greek as a source for his own guidance and self-improvement. Aurelius's meditations are his true legacy to the world. The work is a private journal of the emperor's thoughts, written to encourage one to lead life to the best of their ability. Marcus Aurelius elected his son, Commodus, as co-governor in 177. Together, they fought against the empire's northern enemies. Marcus Aurelius also attempted to extend the borders of the empire through this conflict, but did not live long enough to see this mission completed. The great emperor Marcus Aurelius died at the age of 58 on March 17, 180 AD, of unknown causes, in his military barracks, probably in the province of Upper Pannonia, where Vienna, Austria is today. His death is considered the end of Pax Romana, a period that began during the reign of Emperor Augustus and lasted approximately 200 years. It was the golden age of Roman imperialism. When Marcus Aurelius died and his successor took over, the Roman world began an irreversible decline. Commodus had erratic behavior and a lack of political and military acumen. He was unable to hold the reins of power as his father had done. Marcus Aurelius acquired a reputation as a philosopher king during his lifetime. He was praised by the Roman historian Cassius Dio, who wrote, "From the early days of Marcus Aurelius as Antoninus's advisor to his last days as Roman emperor, he was always the same person and did not change a bit." This is how the life of Marcus Aurelius ended, one of the few rulers in world history who understood his role as a servant of the people, devoting his life to the personal development and prosperity of the Roman Empire.